I saw a graphic over the weekend of NBA MVP odds.
Mm.
And it's the usual suspects. It's Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Giannis is up there. It's
Yep.
just those really top end players. Tatum, I think,
Embiid.
is in the mix. Embiid, yeah. Right now at BetMGM, it's Jokic and Doncic. They're the co-favorites at plus 375.
Okay.
For reference, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are tied at plus 20,000, and DeMar DeRozan is plus 25,000.
Oh,
those are the Kings' top three.
Okay.
Let me preface this by saying I don't think the Kings are going to have the MVP of the NBA on their team. But if I told you, James, hey, I'm Kyle from the future. I live in July of 2025. A Sacramento King won the 2024-2025 NBA's Most Valuable Player Award. Who would you think it was?
Well, I think first and foremost, the pathway would have to be that the Kings have a season similar to what Boston had last year. And I don't mean like winning a title. I mean regular season where you finish the Western Conference like 8-10 games above everyone else. You win 63, 64 games, something wild, something crazy that puts you so far into the conversation that it's beyond, like, you can't refute it. So I think this is going to be an interesting year because we've kind of been building up to this where a guy like Shai has not been, he's an MVP candidate, but because his team hadn't taken the necessary steps, you hadn't given it to him, real consideration. And now he came in second or third, whatever it was. He came in this, I think he was second, and he's right there. Right. So I think that's where we're going to have him thrown in the mix. Now, Luka makes it to the finals. Now, Luka is going to be in the mix for sure. Like, Luka's always been a big time candidate, but more of a statistical juggernaut than a true candidate for the MVP.
Can I pause you right there on the Doncic part of this? I think the general voting area of the media, I hate saying the media because that's technically us, but then the national media that is involved with the voting, and such, I think so badly wants Doncic to win an MVP.
Oh yeah,
it just they were the 9 seed or whatever, and it's like,
Doncic's got a shot.
MVP, like, man, what? 9 seed?
No, he doesn't have a shot.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a couple of players that are pacing, and then at least one player that I think is falling off. And like, it doesn't matter what Joel Embiid does statistically. I don't think there's any way he ever gets to 65 games again.
Doesn't feel like it.
And maybe I'm crazy there. Maybe he does, and maybe he's in the running. But I don't know what his team is going to look like. We'll have to see what Paul George and Tyrese Maxey, and then the accumulation of talent they have around it. But I do think that, like, the days of Kevin Durant being mentioned as a potential MVP, they're gone. And so we're at this balancing point where, again, Steph Curry, I don't see him being an MVP again. So we're seeing a couple of players rise, and I could see, again, Anthony Edwards getting in that conversation. I definitely like Luka, and like I think it's going to be the usual suspects outside of some of the guys that are fading. But what would it take for the Kings to get into that conversation? It would take an astronomical, like, team success to get you into it. And then, like, we can have a discussion, like, Kyle, who would be your guy with the Kings?
I think it would be. I think I'd go Fox because I think if they are going to take that kind of leap where they're winning, like you said, because let's go to this world for a second.
Yeah.
If the Kings are winning and have an MVP candidate, it's because, like you just said, it's not 51-52 wins where we here in Sacramento are like, holy crap, yes. That's not going to move the needle a ton nationally to get whoever the candidate would be above all these preseason favorites, right?
Yep.
There is such a massive hill to climb. So now we're talking 61, 62, 63 wins. So a 60-plus win Kings team. I think that is where De'Aaron Fox took a substantial leap, where he's not only healthy for the entire season, But that lull we saw through that portion of last year where we were kind of all looking around like, what's wrong with De'Aaron Fox, never comes.
Mm.
And he's averaging 28 plus a night, and he's averaging 6.5, 7 assists a night. And he hits these statistical benchmarks, and he is the clutch player of the year, and he is scoring 40 here and 40 there. I know there's a national TV game, and he had 38 and 10.
Mm.
I think that's a leap from De'Aaron Fox is where I think the Kings make that leap into a 60-plus win team. So if you're telling me the Kings got there, I think it's because of De'Aaron Fox.
Okay, I'm going to take a different angle because,
Okay.
like the last 2 years, Sabonis has finished 7th and 8th in MVP win shares.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you're going to get, like, first of all, I think there's always room for Sabonis to score more, right? Like, and in all honesty, I think adding DeRozan to this team is going to allow Sabonis to certain nights score less, but there will also be a lot more focus on DeRozan, a lot more focus on Fox, and Sabonis will actually have way more opportunity to go one-on-one and score if he chooses to do so. But for me, it's him who has the statistical ability to climb into the race and be there with a guy like Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if you look at win shares, if you look at like super advanced statistics, Sabonis is like second, third in the league in advanced statistics, like major advanced statistics categories.
Mm-hmm.
And so could I see Sabonis averaging 22, leading the league in rebounds at like 13.5, maybe even 14. And then on top of that, averaging close to 10 assists?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally could. And so I think for him, he's the one that can take this statistical leap in the other categories. Because if I'm looking at Fox and let's say he does get to 20, now let's say he gets to 30.
I think it need to be 30. Somebody in the chat said it need to be 30 and 10. I don't think it need to be 30 and 10, but I think it would have to be minimum 30 points a game.
Yeah, but I don't think he can get to 10, and that's the problem. Because
I don't think he needs to. I don't think he needs to though. I think if he averages 30,
yeah,
on a 30 and let's call it 6
mm-hmm.
on a 62 win team,
yeah.
But go on. Continue.
No, you might be right. You might be right. But the problem is that he's going to go up against Luka's averaging 34, 10, and 9.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so that's where you're going to run into this buzzsaw that's out there. So if all things are considered, equal, I think that Fox can get into a conversation like Shea did, and he can, drive his team into a conversation. But he does need to find that exact consistency that Shea has brought.
Exactly.
And that's where I think SGA is, like, we talked about it, like, he scored 31 points like 30 something times this season, which is just like wild. Like, it's such a crazy stat that, like, where he averages for the season and like the plus and minus off of that number is so close. Like, just it's remarkable. So the consistency is something that I think if Fox were to take that leap into an MVP caliber conversation, it would have to be like every single night he's got 25, but on most nights he's around 30, and he's averaging over 30 or at 30 for the season. So I'm here for it though. Like, I think he can get there. I don't know if he can win an MVP. I would bet against him winning an MVP anytime in his career. But
Shea?
No, De'Aaron.
Oh yeah.
And that's not being disrespectful. I'm just being honest. Like,
winning an MVP is hard, dude.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you have to be
very difficult.
Yeah, and it's not just how good a player is. Look how good Luka's been, and he still doesn't have one. It would take such a perfect lightning strike of Kings victories plus just outlandish statistical production, and maybe that's where the case for Sabonis is.
Yeah,
maybe it's not 22, 13 and a half and 10, but I could see if he went to, I don't think he would because this isn't his game, but if he started with DeMar DeRozan on the team now, he starts putting up 4 threes a game and starts averaging 25, 13, and 9 on a 60-plus win team. Like, that leap, I think, is probably easier for him to make given how consistent he is with his rebounding and with his assist numbers. That if you tack on an extra 3 and a couple extra field goal attempts a night all of a sudden his 19 pretty quickly goes to 25.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, where the leap for Domas would be. I can't draw a path to DeRozan.
No. I mean, not at 35 years old.
No.
I mean, like he
Not
is
a realistic one anyway.
he's a great scorer, and like I think that there's a lot of things that you love about him, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really tough for a guy to become something he hasn't been throughout his career this late in his career. And so, yeah, like win shares on the season, Domantas Sabonis finished 4th behind Jokic, Shea, and Giannis.
Mhm.
Offensive win shares, he was 5th. Defensive win shares,
Mhm.
Domantas Sabonis was number 11 in the league.
I
Like
think
all of these advanced statistics put him up there in the conversation, which is why he usually finishes in
mhm.
the top 10 of MVP balloting.
Right.
But that's amazing.
The other issue with this, and this is where, again, this is not necessarily about Sacramento. You would also need the guy we just talked about, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, to either have a really down year or have Oklahoma City be like a 5 seed. And you need to
Yeah.
have Anthony Edwards not taking another leap and Minnesota being like a 4 seed.
Yeah, and I would
You
even
did
say,
we haven't even mentioned Nikola Jokic, by the way,
yeah,
who might just steamroll his way to another one.
yeah. And I'd also say, like, it wouldn't even be this season. It would be you don't just have to do it once, you have to do it twice. You know,
Yeah.
that's where, sort of Shea is at right now. He's a 2-time All-Star, but he finished 5th in MVP the season before and 2nd this last year. He's pacing to get there, but he's also getting Defensive Player of the Year. He's getting
Mhm.
Clutch Player of the Year votes. He's getting First Team All MVP, All NBA votes. All these
Mhm.
things. Like you would have to have somebody take a leap, like a
That's
dramatic leap.
that's the other area I think that could help De'Aaron in making that case, is just flipping that switch into a full-blown, like, nationally known, renowned two-way player,
Yeah, oh yeah,
where he's at 30 and 6 a night. He's shooting 38% from 3, and he's second team all defense.
yeah,
And it's just known when your team plays the Kings, it's like, man, De'Aaron Fox is gonna put clamps on whoever the guard is.
yeah. I think it's going to be interesting too to see how the dynamic changes when you add an elite scorer
Mm-hmm.
like DeMar DeRozan. Does it take away from De'Aaron's point totals?
Yeah.
Or will it add to the point totals?
Yeah.
I definitely think it's going to be like people are like Keegan Murray for most valuable player, for most improved player. Someone in the chat had put that out there. That's going to be so incredibly difficult because he's now running up against basically 3 players on his team that
Mm-hmm.
are going to average around 70 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where I like advanced team building really does come into play. It's why
Mm-hmm.
I will keep saying I think Keon Ellis as of today might be the best option as your starting shooting guard because he gives you the defense, but he also doesn't demand a bunch of shots,
Mm-hmm.
right? It allows Malik Monk to be your first option off the bench, which means he's going to get 12 to 15 shots per game where he's not going to get that with the starting group. So if you're piecing together all of these things,
Mm-hmm.
it you need everyone to fit in the puzzle. It can't just be like, hey, like we're gonna throw this guy into the starting lineup and see how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone has to have a role,
Yeah.
and that's what's gonna be very difficult for Keegan. I expect Keegan to ascend as you slowly see DeMar DeRozan descend
Mm-hmm.
as far as like what he is as a player, but that probably won't happen in this year. It might happen the year after that, and then whether DeMar is there for year 3 or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some interesting stuff that's going on with this team, and it's not just cut and dry. Hey, go get this player and let's see how it goes type stuff.
Yeah, I'm not banking on Keegan Murray becoming more aggressive with this group of players.
Yeah.
Which you can't be a little bit better. Again, you have to get outside of Sacramento. We might watch Keegan on a night-to-night basis and go, wow, what a leap.
Mm-hmm.
But statistically, to be most improved, there's going to be somebody who averaged 14 a game last year who averages 22 a night. Somebody's going to take that Kobe White type of leap.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to take that Tyrese Maxey type of leap where Tyrese Maxey was really good and then he goes to great.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's going to be gross. You know who I think is going to win Most Improved?
Uh-oh.
Ja.
Oh.
Ja's going to come back.
He'll get comeback player of the year.
Is that an award in the NBA?
Oh, maybe not. I think it is. Oh, maybe it's not. I just assume they have a comeback player of the year.
Who? I have no idea.
You're probably right.
I don't think they do.
Yeah. Huh.
But I could just tell. I can see it now. Like, wow, he stayed out of trouble. He averaged 28 a night. Wow, what a player, Ja. We got to give him something.
They do have an award.
Oh,
I think.
Okay, good.
It was awarded from No, it was only awarded from 1981 and 1986. They don't have it anymore.
Bring it back.
Because I
bring it back.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't see. I am interested to see what the DeRozan inclusion does for sure. Particularly with Malik Monk and how Mike Brown fits all those guys on the floor at one time.
Oh yeah.
And the biggest question for me is not necessarily whether those guys can all play together, because I think they can. There's enough playmaking chops there, and I think there's enough basketball IQ there for them to coexist, particularly offensively. The defensive stuff you can figure out, but particularly on offense, I think they can all fit together. The number one problem that has to be solved when you start talking about closing lineup: De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. That's the closing five, right?
Mm-hmm.
Assuming everybody's healthy, that's the way we're leaning.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be game in and game out. Like, I think that there's a possibility that one of the starters is out, and maybe Keon Ellis is, as a starter. Like, you might need to go defensive here and there.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm kind of with you.
The biggest question they have to answer, and this can be figured out throughout the season, but if they're going to be in the playoffs, I think this needs to be hashed out by the postseason, is what's that pecking order look like?
Yeah, I'm kind of here for a no pecking order.
I think you got to have one.
Final 5 minutes.
I think you got to have one.
Well, I still think it's going to be Fox, but then I think it's going to be Fox, DeRozan, and Monk. And I also think that the fact that you don't know what angle it's coming from, and so if a team wants to switch, one of those guys is going to have a mismatch, and that's who you go to. Like, that's what it's going to be. You're gonna ride the hot hand. You're gonna go to the mismatch, and you're gonna attack that. I don't know. I'm here for
trying to run offense in the final 2 minutes of a close game, though.
Yeah.
Like, dude, get your guy going downhill and go get a bucket.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought. That's kind of what I think the Kings' problem was in crunch time last year. It was so much like DHO and drive and kick and all this stuff. Like, dude, just give it to De'Aaron Fox, let him dribble past his guy and let him go score. Whether it's in the mid-range, whether he's getting to the cup, he does it.
Yeah.
That's their most unstoppable play is De'Aaron Fox is too fast for whatever the defense is doing.
I agree, but I think at some point it became predictable. And I think that's where...
So?
Well, yeah, but if it becomes predictable but if they stop it, if he goes from shooting 54% in the clutch to 44% in the...
What was it before last year?
I mean,
he was the clutch player of the year because everybody in the building knew De'Aaron Fox was going to walk into a three in Chicago, and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody knew De'Aaron Fox was going to be the guy. To me, he's still the guy. That was the crux of what I was saying.
I think he should still be the guy. And, and again, the fact that him and DeMar DeRozan finished 1 and 2 in fourth quarter scoring, again, that's like dueling banjos. Like, if you don't know... I think
Monk was up there too, by the way.
Yeah. Go on. If you don't know where they're coming from, what player is going to attack, it's one thing to try to slow something down in the first 45 minutes of a game. But that final couple of minutes when it becomes elite one-on-one play, that's where I think the Kings had really, really struggled. And they had this problem that some games they had tried to stay in games for so long that De'Aaron had played too many minutes already. And you got to give him a break really quick and hope that you can hold on and then bring him right back in. Well, now when you do that, it's like, it's okay. Sure. There can be a place where you start the fourth quarter without DeMar DeRozan, without De'Aaron Fox on the court. And then you wait until, as long as you can get to the 5 minute mark, you can get to the 6 minute mark, maybe the 8 minute mark. It just depends on the game before you need to drop in your two dudes to finish it. And that in those minutes, I think Malik Monk can really be an impactful player that helps put you over the top in games that, maybe that you wouldn't have been in last year.
Yeah.
Again, like the key to the NBA is having as many players on your roster that the opposing team has a game plan for.
Mhm.
If you only have 2 or 3 of them on in your starting
Yeah.
lineup or on the court at one time, that makes you like pretty easy to defend. If
Mhm.
all of your guys are standing in the corner waiting
Mhm.
for the 3 ball, okay, like
Mhm.
that's not that dangerous. When you have to start worrying about, who's going to attack as Luka or Kyrie.
Mhm.
And then, hey, we still have to make sure that we're not getting beat by PJ Washington or we're not getting
Mhm.
beat by Derrick Jones Jr. in the corner or whatever.
Mhm.
That's a big deal. But I think for me, this is one of those situations where the more guys that can go for 30 or 40 every single game
Sure.
that you have, the more difficult you are to defend and
Mhm.
game plan and everything else. And then having DeMar DeRozan have a completely different skill set than anyone else that you've had on this roster,
Mhm.
to me is really intriguing as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I think it's something they have to hash out though,
Mhm.
because there can't be at the end of games, Monk is dribbling and it's like, oh wait, DeMar's supposed to be the guy, or now you've got maybe it's DeRozan taking the last shot, and you have, and maybe I'm way overthinking this, but it's Fox and Monk like, hey, what is this? Like I'm supposed to be. I think that's something that has to be figured out because that can really cause a problem where if you're in the final couple of minutes and you have people hesitating on what they're supposed to be doing because oh I'm the guy or I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
Like not to me there has to be, and like you said, it's not that I think in the final 2 or 3 minutes of a game, De'Aaron Fox has to take every single shot.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be an understanding that in those spots, hey, when they're going to just ISO and he's going to go get a bucket, he's going to be the guy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Hey, I
like I
think
said, they have 82 games plus an offseason to figure it out. So.
Yeah, there are going to be games where you get into and you're waiting to see if De'Aaron's just a decoy.
Sure.
But you're going to have games where DeMar's just a decoy
mm-hmm.
and where Malik's just a decoy.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of these guys can take over in a game
Mm-hmm.
late. And I think what it does do is it takes all the pressure off of Sabonis.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for Sabonis, the pressure is to make sure that you're finding the right guy in the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it's like, okay, like who's gonna bring something different tonight? And like again, you can ride the hot hand. Somebody has shown it all game long that they got it. Then you just keep feeding them and feeding them.
Yeah. If Monk has 50, you're not going to go away from him in the last
Yeah, no, totally, totally.